Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth hosted a town hall at the Pentagon this past week, a building where he admitted he doesn't even know where the bathroom is because he's not that experienced. Also acknowledged that he's probably a lower rank than everybody in the room.
A great deal. I spent a lot of my career in the military, which is not as much as so many of you, trying to run away from the flagpole as quick as possible. Now it appears I am the flagpole.
How funny. He has less experience than the people he's talking down to, and now he is their superior. Excellent. Go America. He also talked about what he thinks is the most important thing is that diversity is not our strength for the U.S. military. It's actually our unity.
Our perspective, why do you get rid of something like DEI? Because from our perspective, it's served a purpose of dividing the force as opposed to uniting the force. And this is something I've said quite publicly, and what I want to be is transparent with this building and everyone who serves here. Say the same thing in public that we say in private, which I hope you'll find from us. I think the single dumbest phrase in military history is our diversity is our strength. I think our strength is our unity. Our strength is our shared purpose, regardless of our background, regardless of how we grew up, regardless of our gender, regardless of our race. In this department, we will treat everyone equally. We will treat everyone with fairness. We will treat everyone with respect. And we will judge you as an individual by your merit and by your commitment to the team and the mission. That's how it has been. That's how it will be. Any inference otherwise is meant to divide or create complications that otherwise should not and do not exist. I've served across my career.
The opposite of diversity is not unity. The opposite of diversity is a monolithic military ran by only white men, and that is what Pete Hegseth wants. He has made that extremely clear in the books he's written, in statements he's made, and in this town hall, and in things that are happening in this new administration. Pete Hegseth is coming with a colorblindness approach, which, as a women's studies major, that's like 101 stuff. Colorblindness is actually pretty racist. It means you don't see the whole person in front of you. You don't recognize who they are, where they come from, because, yeah, race and gender and all of that, it does impact a person. It provides a tapestry of their entire life. It gives context to their story and who they are. And if you refuse to see color, that means you refuse to see all of that. It also means you can ignore racism because you don't see color. You can ignore any issues that they have because you just see them as another person, usually another white person. A person's background is extremely important to their skills, and to have a fully functioning military, you need people from diverse backgrounds. You need people who understand things that others don't. Diverse voices are important in all aspects of humanity, but especially the military. And historically speaking, the military has actually been more progressive than society. They had black soldiers during World War II who came back home and saw, we were just fighting for humanity over in Europe, but I come back home and I can't use the same drinking fountain as my fellow white soldier. Like, it's crazy to say, but the U.S. military has been progressive in this instance because they recognize that diversity is extremely important. It comes from selfishness, for sure, because they want more recruits. They want a capable body for the military. But it's also real. Like, they don't want to compromise their mission by being racist. You know, Pete Hegseth doesn't really care so much about that. He's also against women in combat. He's been really loud and proud about that. But in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, female soldiers are incredibly important because they can talk to the women in those communities. This isn't just an issue of nuance and things that he's saying and his own misunderstanding of what diversity means. This is having real world effects on the U.S. military. Donald Trump has already signed multiple executive orders banning trans people from the military. And Pete Hegseth was actually met with boos and protest when he went to the base in Stuttgart, Germany, from military families who were upset about this directive. Defense Secretary Hegseth booed and heckled by military families protesting against DEI push. Last week, Hegseth wrote a memo in which he banned transgender people from joining the military and restricted the use of some learning materials in Defense Department schools. Military families protesting the Defense Department's anti-DEI push heckled Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth on his arrival at United States European Command Headquarters in Germany on Tuesday. On a visit to the U.S. military's key European military hub in Stuttgart, Hegseth was booed by around 24 people who live at the base in an apparent demonstration against the policies currently being implemented by the Trump administration. The demonstrators at the short protest repeatedly chanted DEI, apparently in a reference to the recent ban Hegseth has placed on some books in Defense Department schools. Hegseth last week ordered the restriction of learning materials covering subjects that included psychology and immigration in DoD schools. So yeah, he got booed and protested in Stuttgart, Germany, because he is taking away curriculum about immigration, about psychology, and because he's banning, just an outright ban of trans people for the United States military. I mean, Trump did it, but he's enforcing it. They're always talking about how there's all these new recruits and they're doing an amazing job recruiting people, but most of those numbers are from months ago, like before the election even happened, for people recruiting. What's actually happening right now with the Department of Defense is they are limiting their recruitment pool with all these anti-DEI initiatives and by kicking trans people out of the military and not allowing any more trans people to sign up. They are making their pool of recruits smaller because he wants a whites-only military. Let's look at what's going on at the Black Engineer of the Year Awards, which is a significant venue for recruiting people to the U.S. military, but because it is for Black engineers, the U.S. Army has pulled out of recruiting people from this event. Military backs out of recruiting at Science and Engineering Conference as part of DEI purge. Military organizations have backed out of an engineering, science, and technology conference set for this weekend as part of a new Pentagon policy that bans diversity-focused events. The Becoming Everything You Are conference, formerly known as the Black Engineer of the Year Award conference, has a record of supporting and celebrating military employment as a civilian or service member, and has consistently helped the Defense Department recruit hundreds of young professionals, said Tyrone Taborn, publisher, chairman, and CEO of Career Communication Group, which is behind the nearly 40-year-old event. The conference, held each year in Baltimore, is focused on careers and mentorship in science, technology, engineering, and math, and last year the Army recruited about 300 people, he said. But given the push from Donald Trump's administration to end all forms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, the Defense Department has ordered all its organizations cancel official participation in this weekend's event. The federal government had committed to spend about $1.5 million on the event, Taborn said. Pentagon officials responded to the cancellations by pointing to a policy released January 31st by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called Identity Month's Dead at DoD that bars use of any official resources for celebrations, events, or cultural awareness months. Service members and civilians can attend these events in an unofficial capacity outside of duty hours, according to the policy. Taborn said he was shocked by the move. He said the conference has moved beyond affinity group affiliation to be one of the largest conferences in the country with up to 14,000 attendees each year. He said he pored over the conference sessions this year to ensure each was compliant with new Pentagon directives and adjusted or removed any legacy sessions of concern. There's a lot more I want to share with this article, but I want to be very clear here. The director, the CEO of this communications group that puts this on, he did everything in his power to appease the new directive from Donald Trump, and it still wasn't good enough. Like, he just wants these young engineers and scientists to have a chance in their careers. And because of the racism coming from the Trump administration, all of that is done. And he did what he thought was right. He appeased their directive, and it didn't work. It wasn't good enough. No military services that plan to participate in the event would provide the amount of money that they've lost by canceling the conference. The BEYA website stated it does not provide refunds less than 30 days before the event. So not only is this a huge slap in the face to Black scientists and engineers all over the country, it is a massive waste of money. They already spent the money on this, and they're not getting it back. So I thought Donald Trump's whole thing was about government efficiency and saving the taxpayers money, Instead, it's about making our military weaker and wasting money every single day. The Defense Department did not respond Monday on whether it has pressured contractors. BEYA is the major recruiting activity for everybody, and they put all their money behind this. It's such an ecosystem, Taborn said. We are not even DEI, unless you want to say there's too many black people or too many Hispanic people coming to the event. We just can't figure it out. Oh man, I think you did just figure it out. It is about there are too many black and Hispanic people. Like, that is the whole thing. There's not much more to it. It's not that deep. They're just racist white supremacists. The Army received 5,500 resumes and conducted more than 540 interviews at BEYA in 2023, according to a news release about its participation that year. Outside of personal recruitment, the BEYA conference hosts a mentorship program that pairs service members with high school students. The Stars and Stripes dinner held during the conference highlights excellence in military service. The guest list this year has dropped from 1,100 to 600. Admiral Linda Fagan, the Coast Guard commandant who was fired by Trump the day after he took office, was prominently featured in the conference's magazine, which is already printed for distribution this week. Taborn said, "It's too late to change it now." Admiral Fagan was fired and at first was given 3 months to leave her home where the head of the Coast Guard lives, and then Trump gave her 3 days to evacuate her home. So yeah, she was supposed to speak at this and be like a mentor, but that's not happening now either because, she's a woman. The U.S. Naval Academy, which traditionally provides transportation to high school students to attend a mentoring program, canceled the buses. That means many high school and college students will miss their chance to participate. He had expected about 8,000 students at this year's conference. This is a really big deal, and I want people to recognize that. It's never been about military readiness. It's about creating a whites-only military. Why else would they cancel these massive recruitment events? I mean, the event's still going on, but not as many people are going to show up, and the U.S. military isn't going to be there. There's not going to be the mentorship program. Like, Taborn, he said he was, scrambling to get people to fill in those gaps, and they're more than happy to help. But it is a very obvious oversight by the U.S. military, by the Department of Defense, and it's purposeful. They do not want to be associated with black engineers. That needs to be explicitly stated over and over again. It is pure racism. That is my only explanation. These people are the best and brightest, but the U.S. military doesn't want them. We are competing with China and India, and I think technology-wise, we need to go for all our best people. A lot of our best people are going to be there at BEYA, Frisbee said, and Russell Frisbee is an attorney who has participated and attended the conference in previous years. This is a really big problem. Donald Trump is starting trade wars with our allies. Canada, Greenland, the Panama Canal, Panama, they are all readying for war. Denmark has sent more military money, funding, whatever, to Greenland in case this rhetoric escalates to actual attacks. The world is readying for war against us. And meanwhile, our Secretary of Defense is holding town halls in front of people that he's not even qualified to wipe their shoes. And they are lowering our recruitment pool and ostracizing people from the military, othering people, all in an effort to not see color and to have unity be our strength, because we wouldn't want diversity as our strength. We want everyone to look exactly the same. I'm just going to end with another part from that Pentagon conference, or that Pentagon town hall, where a woman asked Secretary of Defense in the most polite possible way, what is going to happen to our jobs? We know you want to streamline the government. So do you have a timeline? Do you know what that's going to look like? What kind of cuts are going to happen in the U.S. military? And I'm going to let him play out his entire answer because he says a lot. And it's basically we're coming for everything. And he acts like it's going to be careful. But if Doge is any example of the level of concern they have for all of this stuff, they're coming in with a freaking machete and hacking it to bits.
Yes.
Great. Thanks for taking the time to come and speak with us. Recognizing the president's intent to streamline the federal workforce, I was hoping you could provide a little bit of your process and your thinking of what that means for the department, where there'll be identified areas to be cut or streamlined, and if you have a sense of also the timeline.
Sure. Thank you for the question. It is, the way I look at it, or I've thought about it, is from the flagpole to the front lines. There are thousands of additional, and I'm not saying that just because we're here in the Pentagon, but there are thousands of additional Pentagon positions, headquarters positions, others positions that have been created over the last 20 years that don't necessarily translate to battlefield success. Additional staff, additional layers of bureaucracy, additional flag officer positions that we would be remiss if we did not review. We also live in a budget-constrained environment, and that's politics that I thankfully don't have to worry about anymore. I have my opinions, but that's not my job. My job is a ready force. We will have to live inside the constraints of the past. I mean, we were down at Fort Bliss recently, and the unit there, the armored cav unit there, relayed that they've had to cut an FTX, a series of training exercises coming up because of budget constraints. Well, when you're living off of continuing resolutions and caps, and then you have contingency operations and things that change, suddenly you have shortfalls, and now unit training falls by the wayside. From my perspective, that's completely unacceptable. What are we spending elsewhere that can be targeted efficiently? And it's not just the fraud, waste, and abuse stuff. It's systems, it's hierarchies, it's layers that we can review, reduce, recommend those reductions, that then allows us to ensure that training and readiness in the frontline units and the COCOMs is even increased. I want more of that. So it's interesting. Former Secretary Rumsfeld gave a speech on September 10th, 2001, that was about acquisitions and reform and Pentagon bureaucracy that, overtaken by events the next day, September 11th, 2001, was quickly forgotten and really never addressed. I feel like I could give about 85% of the same speech today that Secretary Rumsfeld gave on September 10th, because a lot of those processes have become even more systemic in taking root here that cause delays, redundancies, and bureaucratic red tape. We're looking at the headquarters level. We're looking at the highest levels. I said this in my hearing as well. We won World War II with 7 4-star generals. Today we have 44. Do all of those directly contribute to warfighting success? Maybe they do. I don't know. But it's worth reviewing to make sure they do. So we're looking at all options. What we're not going to be is hasty about it, because we're in the business of national security, and something that may not look like it's contributing may be incredibly important to the effort. And so whatever we do is going to be done carefully. Thank you.
The ending of that is really concerning when he talks about the generals and how we have more than we had during World War II. And he's like, maybe they are good. Maybe they do serve a purpose. But generals, Project 2025, Donald Trump, the Heritage Foundation, Pete Hegseth, they are coming for you. They've been talking about it for years. Pete Hegseth has problems with generals because he didn't like being investigated for being a freaking white nationalist or Christian nationalist. So they are coming for the generals. Like, the US military is going to be gutted from the inside by a bunch of white supremacists. And I really hope that there are some people in the military who stand up to this, because they're coming for you. Doge is coming after the Department of Defense, and Pete Hegseth is going to just let them in. Before I end this video, I also wanted to mention at the end of the town hall on the YouTube channel, I guess, he had this logo that says, "When tyranny becomes law, rebellion is duty, 1776." And I'm pretty sure that's the 3%ers logo, which is a domestic terrorist group who stormed the Capitol. And it says Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth hosts a Q&A at the town hall meeting at the Pentagon. That logo is sitting in front of the Black American flag, which is a protest against like a tyrannical government. But like, bro, Hegseth, you are the government. Donald Trump is the president. So like, what are you protesting? Where's the tyranny coming from? From my perspective, you guys are the tyrannical monsters. But like, Who are you protesting? What is this? Anyway, that's Pete Hegseth this week. That's the state of our Department of Defense. Pure chaos and a mess. And now we are susceptible to attacks, especially since the Doge cyber terrorists have their hands on everything. Anyway, thanks for watching, and talk to you again when something else crazy happens.